a COVID case in almost every barangay. This was the situation of Quezon City in the first months of the lockdown. While the city with the biggest population and the most number of cases in Metro Manila was able to increase testing and treatment, there are still pockets of outbreaks in areas that remain on special lockdown. How will Quezon City win the war against COVID-19? We discuss in this episode of the Chiefs. Welcome to this special edition of the Chiefs, and with me right now is Robbie Alampay of One News. Good evening, Robbie.
Oh, good evening, Ami. Mukhang tayo dalawa lang, ah.
Oo nga eh. Mga pamilya
Ano ba?
nila. What's the headline nagkagawa ako ng dyaryo kanina eh. What's the headline?
Marami. Marami. I mean, but let's start off with something na hindi naman COVID. Yung shootout sa Hulo. That was medyo magandang sundan yung development na yan because the police is now officially acknowledging that there was no shootout. Remember yesterday, remember may namatay na mga sundalo, dati kahapon ang initial line kaagad ng police was this was a shootout. The military obviously did not take that well. At the very least, they wanted what they said a proper investigation. The military also initially were immediately very quick to call it a whitewash. Now the police is saying mukhang hindi talaga shootout.
Hindi siya misencounter.
No, hindi siya misencounter, and they're saying hindi shootout in the sense that hindi nakabaril yung mga sundalo. Talagang it was only from the side of the police. But despite that, we heard spokesperson for the PNP, General Banat, saying that nonetheless they still believe, that's still their theory, na una raw bumunot yung mga sundalo pero hindi nakabaril. So they're not calling it, they're calling it iba pa yung shootout eh, no? But they're calling it a shooting, but definitely they're not calling it a shootout anymore.
Oo nga. So, nagabang ka ba kagabi? Inintay mo ba medyo late yung ni Presidente kagabi, no? Yung announcement na naman. So, ECQ pa rin tayo.
ECQ ang Cebu.
ECQ pa rin ang Cebu. At siguro ipasok na natin yung guest natin because we will be talking about preparations for ongoing responses. So, we'd like to welcome Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte.
Hello, good evening, Annie, and good evening, Robbie.
Good evening, Mayor.
Yes. Okay, nabanggit na nga namin that you are in charge of the biggest, the most populous city in the Philippines. And sa umpisa, you were also among the first to impose hard lockdowns. What's the situation now, Mayor, in this city? Ang dami-dami ninyong informal settlers, the most crowded. What's the situation?
Oo nga, Amy, actually, I feel a lot more confident now with our figures. Kasi bagamat we are the biggest city, most populated city, and sa kabuuan, in terms of absolute numbers, we still have the second most number of cases. Still, when you look at things in perspective, pag halimbawa, tingnan natin sa medical perspective, which is number of cases per 1 million or number of cases per 100,000. Quezon City is actually only the 13th in the Philippines and 9th in Metro Manila, which is quite good already. And we have more recoveries than the average in the NCR region with 60% recoveries and 33% active cases. And that's much, much higher in terms of recoveries in Metro Manila and much, much lower in terms of active cases in Metro Manila as well. So medyo okay naman. At ngayon, nung inaaral ko na yung datos namin, nakikita ko we're in what we call cruise control. Hindi na siya tumataas. Steady lang siya. Pero of course, ang ideal situation is bumaba siya. But at least this for me shows that the strategy that we have adopted is working. And we are continuing to implement this strategy that we have.
Ma'am, what specific indicators would you like to cite to indicate na yan, na mukhang you're flattening the curve? What indicators are we measuring this by?
Well, una sa lahat, yung rate of increase ay nag-slow down na. I think this came out in the papers. This was a study by UP, so it's an independent study. And kahit na bumabagal at nagtetest tayo na nagtetest, ay nakikita naman natin na when we test, the numbers go up, but there is a very strong correlation. I would say a 1:1 correlation between the aggressiveness of testing and the percentage ng pagtaas. So makikita mo naman na yung the testing directly impacts on the increase in the numbers, no? So maganda yon. Actually, that means that we're testing in the right places, no? At maganda yung indication yon, no? Pangalawa, bumababa na yung sinasabi kanina ni Ami na almost every barangay has a COVID case. Ngayon, we have 37 barangays na zero ang cases and only 18 yung masasabi nating may 10 cases and above. The rest are moderate, no? Moderate, meaning below 10 cases, no? So, tingin ko, magandang indication din yan, no? And katulad na nabanggit ko, yung bilis ng recoveries natin are good. Pero, laging sinasabi ng mga health professionals that you always see if the city is prepared by looking at yung kanilang capacity to deal with critical cases. And in our case, we have about 151 COVID beds in our 3 hospitals. Pero yung 60% lang ng mga beds na ito ay occupied, which is good. Tapos yung mga quarantine facilities namin, we have about 419 beds and maybe about 70% only of these beds are occupied at present. So that means that medyo may space pa tayo. Wag naman sana dumami, pero we are doing okay in Quezon City.
So how many are on special concern lockdown? That's the term sa Quezon City na iba-iba kasi yung tawag. Sa ngayon, how many places, areas, or sitios are on special concern lockdown?
So, Ami, this is a strategy that I think is unique to Quezon City, no? Because, like I always say, this is a health crisis, not a peace and order crisis. So, therefore, we must follow what our doctors tell us, no? Our CESU, not what the PNP or the army tell us about what should be locked down. No? So, ang ginawa po natin, yung doktor ang pumili at ang ginawa nila, naghanap po sila ng mga lugar kung saan nakakita na po sila ng community transmission, no? Or kung saan nakikita natin ng clustering. At ito yung mga in-identify natin na areas na ila-lockdown. Ngayon, we always hear of lockdowns that last 1 weekend or 1 or 2 days. Dito sa amin, it's 14 days talaga ang lockdown because that is the period of time it takes for a virus to live out its course. No? And we started with 13 lockdown areas and now we only have 6 lockdown areas in 5 barangays. And when I talk about a lockdown area, I'm not talking about a barangay. I'm talking about a street, a sitio, a compound, maybe a small area with at most maybe 200, 300 families. Minsan only 50, 20 families. No? Pero ang ginagawa namin, as soon as we lock down, we do extensive testing. Kung kaya natin i-test yung buong population, tinetest na natin sila at kapag may indication na sila ay positive through a rapid test, yun ang una namin ginagawa, hiwalay kaagad, swab test kaagad at hindi na namin pinapahintulutang bumalik sa kanilang tahanan. At kung yung buong community naman ang lockdown, yung buong community talaga na yan ay hindi na natin pinapahintulutang may pumasok o lumabas. So yan ang tinatawag nating hard lockdown. No? And siguro yung challenge lang dyan is the local government must maintain, of course, to sustain the community, to make sure that all their needs are met, lahat ng pangangailangan nila ay maibigay natin para hindi naman sila maging restless, no? Because magiging peace and order problem naman yan.
Ma'am, looking back, I mean, everybody's trying to look for patterns, everybody's trying to look for trends, or at the very least, look for lessons. Where you found clustering, is there anything typical or common characteristics to areas that you found nagkaroon ng clustering, or iba-iba yan bawat lugar?
Actually, magandang tanong yan, Robbie, because this was just a subject of a meeting that called this afternoon. Ano. Alam mo dati, nung unang nagsimula ang COVID, nakikita ko na yung pattern ay naandun sa gated subdivisions o kaya gated household. So, yun ay indikasyon na ito ay sakit na mga may kaya, siguro lumakbay. Pero ngayon, ang nakikita nating patterns ay ang karamihan ng mga kaso natin ay naandun na sa depressed or urban poor areas. No? At doon na rin natin nakikita yung community transmission. Nakikita natin yan sapagkat alam naman natin na sa urban poor areas, napakalapit ng mga bahay sa isa't isa. Pag sinabi mong stay at home, napakahirap mag-stay at home kasi ang liit-liit ng kanilang tinitirhan. No? Kaya naintindihan ko rin kung bakit may transmission dyan. Pero isa sa mga napagmasdan ko na kapag ini-interview natin ang isang community na ating pong nila-lockdown, napansin ko, number one, sila ay nag-inuman or nagtagayan at nag-share ng isang baso. So yan, talagang pattern yan. That is almost in all these cases that we've seen. Meron akong isang barangay na or isang lugar na ni-lockdown dahil yung isang positive doon nag-budal fight at inimbitan niya yung buong kapitbahayanan niya at sila ay nag-share ng pagkain. Lahat sila nag-positive, no? So, meron din mga nagkakaraoke, meron nagpa-party, no? May nagba-basketball. So, a lot of these things are actually not allowed, no, in the community under a quarantine setup. And so, nagpatawag ako ng meeting kasi lahat ito tingin ko maiiwasan kung magbantay lang talaga ang barangay, no. At siguraduhin hindi nangyayari itong mga ganitong klaseng mga bagay. And so tomorrow, magkakaroon ako ng malawakang pagtitipon-tipon sa ating mga punong barangay at mga iba pang opisyales para sabihin na it is time to really enforce the law. Kasi meron po tayong ordinansa dito na bawal magtanggal ng mask. Hindi pwedeng hindi ka nakamask. Because ayon sa mga pag-aaral, 60% of all transmission can be avoided if everyone just wore a mask. No? Pero syempre, pag nagtatalo, nagbabasketball, nagpa-party, nagkakaraoke, wala silang suot na mask. No? And of course, these are group assemblies as well, no, na pinagbabawalan hanggang ngayon. So, that is the pattern that we've been seeing, Robin.
Ma'am, if I may just say, ibang kinuwento nyo, I want to ask, how recent was that? Diba? I mean, yung nagtagay, nagparty, nagbasketball pa, these were things that we probably expected and we probably did in fact see in the early days of this crisis. Pero kung recent pa lang yan, what would be your attitude when you talk to your barangay captains? I can't imagine that this is just a matter of them being lax and it's a matter of just them not knowing or not being alert enough. You would think at a certain point na kung nangyayari pa rin yan, hindi na yan. Parang may active participation na dyan yung barangay.
Tingin ko, Robbie, minsan kasi nagiging confusing eh. Pag sinabi mong ECQ, napaka-linaw naman na lahat bawal, no? Kasi when I went around, and I did actually, against the advice of all my family members, but it is just something I like to do. Ikot ako at nakita ko naman na sumusunod naman sila, natatakot talaga sila pag sinabi mong ECQ, no? Nung nag-MECQ, ganoon din naman. Pero nung sinabing GCQ, tapos napakarami ng pinapayagan ng magtrabaho, pinapayagan ng lumabas si Lola para bumili ng kanyang mga essentials, si 21 and below, pwede kung nagtatrabaho o kaya gumagawa rin ng mga essential tasks, ano. Marami sa ating mga officials actually thought it was okay to do these things, play basketball, go drinking, lalo na nung na-lift natin yung liquor ban, akala nila that's already a license to gather together and drink in public. And now it's time to remind them that hindi yan ang ibig sabihin ng GCQ. GCQ is just something that is more related to the economy. It's to allow the economy to start moving, but it does not that the quarantine is lifted. And that's something I think we have to remind them about.
Mayor, the national government announced this afternoon na papayagan na daw yung mga jeepneys by Friday. Is this a cause of concern for you, lalo na you're still trying to contain the pandemic in certain lockdown areas? Or are you preparing measures to ensure na hindi magiging kosto ng pagkalat ng infection?
Well, Ami, syempre nung unang sinabing magkakaroon tayo ng transport, talagang naging source of concern ito sa akin, lalo na nung sinabi may bus, may jeep, may tricycle, etc. So ngayon na papayagan na ang jeep, of course it's a cause of concern for me dahil magkaharap ang mga tao sa jeep, no? At magkalapit sila. Pero tingin ko, with the proper social distancing measures at maging stricto lang naman tayo habang nagbo-board ng jeep ang mga tao at may tamang loading and unloading area, we might be able to make this work because we actually thought that changing or transitioning to GCQ would be a disaster for us here in the NCR region. But actually, hindi naman. Tumaas ng konti ang incidences natin, but we managed to cope. No? At yung healthcare system natin is proof of that we were not overburdened. So tingin ko, rather than have thousands of GP drivers jobless and their families on the verge of hunger, baka naman pwede natin silang payagan with the proper precautionary measures. So it's worth the try, and we will try to prepare for that as much as we can.
Ma'am, beyond payagan ng mga jeepney drivers to have the option na mamasada ulit, are there programs to actively support the jeepney drivers, especially now na a lot of them don't, even with that option, don't want to go out precisely because kahit mamasada sila, wala ring mga pasahero. So beyond giving them that freedom and that option, what programs does the city have to actively support or augment what they can earn?
Well, of course, the transport sector is a sector that's very important to every city. And sa simula pa lang, Robby, naglunsad na kami ng isang programang tinatawag namin Kalingang QC, no? Kung saan nagbigay kami ng ayuda or cash assistance sa ating mga transport sector members. No? Sa kasama dyan yung jeepney, yung taxi, yung TODA, yung bus drivers. No? So this was our way of assisting them. No? Then nung nalaman namin hindi sila papayagan pumasada when others were already being allowed, we gave additional assistance to them in terms of food, no? Pero ang tingin kong napakaganda namin nagawa is we were able to partner with Lala Move. In fact, we were the first city that Lala Move partnered with kung saan ang ating mga jeepney drivers ay magiging taga-deliver na ng mga goods. And at present, we have several, I think hundreds already of jeepney drivers that are part of this program. It's been very successful. One was interviewed recently on television when he used to make just a small amount of money. Daily, he now makes about 1,500 pesos. Na so, nakatulong din ito. And we're also looking towards other alternative modes of employment for them. We're thinking of doing emergency employment that's labor intensive for some of our other displaced workers. And at the moment, I think we are the very first city as well that is launching a stimulus package for the micro and small enterprise sector. No? So we're trying our best to make sure that our small businessmen, our small our employees, and our small business owners, as well as cooperatives, are given the opportunity to sustain themselves during this crisis period.
Yes, I want to ask about that program for SMEs. It involves 700 million, medyo malaki-laki yun. Are there sectors that are priorities for this funding for the SMEs?
Yes, actually, there's a set of criteria that have already been crafted, no. Pero ang gist of ng program is the city will subsidize the wages of workers in micro and small enterprises. Of course, hindi naman lahat dahil hindi naman kayanin ng ating lungsod lahat, no. May criteria talaga na kailangan nilang tuparin. Pero by subsidizing 50% of the wages, we hope that these businesses will not go out of business. And these potential unemployed people will still have jobs to go to and food to bring home to the family. You know? And having done the math, I think 700 million, while it's a large amount, it's a very good investment because it's an investment in our economy and it's an investment in our future. And it's something that we are willing to do for the people of our city.
Ma'am, a lot of those MSMEs are in the food industry. A lot of them are in retail. How do you strike a balance between, on the one hand, still cautioning people, still encouraging the social distancing and so on, and for that matter, limiting the economic activity? How do you balance that with the need to revive economic activity? Especially, Quezon City, and daming areas where people really converge. A lot of really good restaurants, really good bars, a lot of night spots, and a lot of malls and so on. So how do you strike that balance?
Well, first of all, Robby, we are a city that is always OC. I am OC. So I made sure that as soon as lumabas yung announcement ng Pangulo na ito yung status natin, GCQ or ECQ, ito yung papayagan natin, hindi natin papayagan, gumawa pa tayo in addition to the national government guidelines, local government guidelines, no, para mas stricto pa tayo sa pag-i-enforce ng mga precautionary measures, no, lalong-lalo no, pertaining to social distancing, mask wearing, disinfecting, cleanliness, good hygiene, etc. No? So we have very, very strict measures governing that. We have mandated every single establishment to have a public safety officer or health officer that makes sure that all of these measures are in place. We require them to have a testing plan because we want to make sure na kung meron man may kahit konting simptomas lamang na nakikita nila sa kanilang mga empleyado, alam nila kung ano ang dapat nilang gawin. We work very closely with them. Our phone numbers of our health departments are with every establishment. They can call us anytime. We will come and give them advice or take away that employee and bring that employee to isolation facilities if necessary. No? So ganyan kami kalapit sa ating mga negosyante. At ganyan kami ka-OC to make sure that they follow all of these protocols. Pero I think one of the good things that we've done is we formed teams as well, no? Consisting of our BPLD personnel, our Department of Public and Order personnel, our tourism industry personnel. They go around randomly to check on various establishments to make sure that these protocols are being followed. And these are surprise visits. No? And I find this very effective kasi laging on their toes yung mga establishments because they're afraid na mabigyan sila ng mga penalties kung sakasakaling sila ay nakitang lumalabag sa mga iba't ibang mga protocols that we have set. No?
Mayor, Quezon City is also home to a lot of universities, educational institutions, all types, no? Is the city ready for the upcoming school year? That's August 24 already. Maraming local government units, sabi nila, hindi yata, baka daw hindi nila makaya yung mga requirements for blended learning.
Well, alam mo, Ami, wala naman sigurong local government unit na makakasabing handang-handa sila kasi this is the first time any of us is experiencing this. But para sa akin, I'd rather be positive rather than negative in the sense that I want to make sure that lahat ng kakayanin naming ibigay sa sektor ng edukasyon, maibigay talaga namin because this is such an important sector for me, most especially. So we have actually allocated 2.9 billion. No? We have realigned or passed a supplemental budget of 2.9 billion to take care of the educational needs of our school children. And we, again, putting things in perspective, have the largest number of school children at 430,000 public school children. So the junior and high school students shall be receiving tablets with internet. So this is bundled with internet providers, no? And we have allocated 1.3 billion for this, and we have about 175,000 junior and senior high school students. Yung iba naman, yung kinder to grade 6, they will be having printed modules. We are going to be providing them with all the needs necessary to make these printed modules available to them as often as they need, no? Sa mga teachers naman nila, magkakaroon ng connectivity sa mga schools at we will be providing about 20 laptops to every school so that the teachers can use these to make their lesson plans, no? So with the DepEd, we try to anticipate potential problems. We do dry runs them, no? Para habang maaga pa yung mga kinks ma-identify na natin at sa lalong madaling panahon, at least yung mga solusyon natin ma-anticipate na natin ay agad-agad na natin matutugunan. No? In the area naman of college, no, Robbie, because we also have a university, this is the Quezon City University, we will be providing laptops to our college students. Again, a big investment. Pero siguro, ang tingin ko nga, this is the time for this is the digital age, this is the age of automation, etc. So maybe it had to take COVID-19 for us to realize that we have to provide these gadgets to our school children for them to catch up with the rest of the world. No? So I want to see this in active light.
Now, ma'am, we have to ask this because we ask this of all the mayors that we guest, and we have to ask this also because, frankly, I have a lot of friends pestering me to ask it of every mayor. And we also see a lot of people clamoring for this. What is Quezon City's policy and plans for biking?
Okay, that's a nice question, and I'm happy to answer that question because I am an environmentalist, and the Quezon City is part of a global network of big cities called the C40. That is committed towards addressing climate change via climate action. No? And even before COVID started, we had already made a commitment globally to implement bike lanes, no? So now, napadali lang. Kasi dati, pinaplano natin siguro a couple of kilometers every year. Pero ngayon, I decided na lahat yan gawin na natin in my first term. So 161 kilometers of bike lanes ang pinaplano po nating implementahin dito sa ating lungsod. In fact, phase 1 is ready for bidding in 2 weeks' time. Phase 1 will include elliptical, Quezon Avenue, and 55 already existing bike lanes, but that are not globally up to global standards. No? So now we will make them globally competitive in the sense that they have the proper signages, proper markings, and safety measures. No? So that's phase 1. And phase 2 includes the rest of the city. Basically, it's a network of interconnected bike lanes na looping, hindi na yung nagbabike ka tas putol. Kailangan lahat ngayon konektado na. Yun yung plano natin. No? So hopefully by the end of my first term, yung 161 kilometers na yan will be finished already. That's something that I'm already always proclaiming because I really want this to happen.
Okay. Now, Mayor, before we go to break, we're running out. But before we go to break, and we'll let this be our final question to you. Every mayor tells us, look, this is a first time for the whole world. This is a first time for everybody. And we've now been in this crisis for more than 100 days. We're now in our 4th month of lockdown. Knowing what you know now and knowing what you've learned now, if you had to do it all over again, what are some key learnings that you would say to yourself? You know, if I knew what I knew, if I knew then what I know now, these are some things that I could have probably done differently.
Well, I would have acted more swiftly. Maybe kung unang kaso pa lang or pangalawang kaso pa lang, siguro magdedeklara na tayo ng state of calamity para magamit na natin yung pondo, emergency funds ng city, yung quick response fund towards more preventive measures. Kasi I think prevention is really the key here. No? I would have already mandated everybody to start wearing masks, for example, no? Because now I know that mask wearing is so effective towards preventing this disease from spreading. I would already have undertaken a massive campaign towards social distancing. I would already have told everybody, start washing your hands. Let's start putting wash facilities in all of our schools, in all of our public places. You know, so these preventive measures I would have done much earlier had I known what I know now. No, but in hindsight, I think that while I guess we started pretty slow, as other mayors also did, because we were taken by surprise. I think that now we're doing much better and we're more calm, and we are very confident in the strategy that we've adopted, and you've seen that it's working. So while we probably started slowly, we're catching up naman now, and I think that we're going to be flattening the curve, and not just flattening the curve, but actually decreasing the numbers very soon if we continue with what we're doing now.
Okay, Mayor, more power. And we'd like to thank Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte for joining us. Thank you, Mayor. Good night po. And we'll just pause for a break.
Po.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Annie. God bless everyone, please.
We'll just pause for a break. Don't go away. We'll be back.
Welcome back, the Chiefs, here on One News. We are now in the final stage of our episode. Joining us is architect Romolo Nati. Architect Nati is the executive chairman and CEO of Italpinas Development Corporation, or IDC, an Italian-Filipino real estate development company. Good evening, Architect Nati.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And our architect,
Hi.
of course, yeah, we invited you here because of you have been advocating for green architecture. Every time somebody mentions green architecture to Filipinos, we say, I'm all in for that. But the second thing we think is green architecture, I know it sounds and I know it's expensive. But when you advocate for green architecture, especially in this new and hopefully better normal, what are you trying to say?
Okay, first of all, I would like to say that the fact that the stereotype that green buildings, green architecture is expensive, again, it's a stereotype. With my company here in the Philippines, Italpinas Development Corporation, we have been proven that green buildings can also be accessible in terms of price. Mainly because we use natural green features, which are mainly embedded in the design itself. So we do not add too many technological features in the building. So the construction of the building is cost to other buildings. So we enhance ventilation, natural light, and things like that. As you said, in this period, green buildings are becoming more and more relevant because of this feature that I just mentioned. Mainly the natural ventilation and the access to outdoor spaces. I'm sure that all of us, yourself as well, experience that there are a lot of buildings in Southeast Asia that do not have terraces. So in case of lockdown, that like we have experienced in the past months, not having access from your unit to an outdoor space like a terrace can be very tough. So having terraces it can help in period of lockdown. And green buildings in general have this easy access to open spaces. On top of that, increase on natural ventilation help to reduce the use of aircon, and there are studies proving that the spread of the virus can be enhanced through the air conditioning system. So living in a environment that doesn't need too much aircon definitely help to reduce the risk of getting a virus or even bacteria. So these are some features that can help in this kind of situation.
Okay, so talking about green architecture, or for that matter, green living, and talking about it not as a product or not even as a service, but as a movement. I mean, tell us what can Filipinos do to be part of this movement, even within their own homes? What are some basic principles that we can do to be greener in our lives, even right now, without having to spend anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say that we can provide green products, green buildings, green everything, green services. But if the culture of the people that uses these products or these services is not green, then it's a problem. So there are many ways that everyone can contribute to live in a more sustainable way. First of all, is reducing the use of cars or reduce the movement so that we reduce the production of CO2. At the same time, we can try to reduce the use of aircon because I don't know, I mean, in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, for example, around 60% of energy is used for aircon. So if we can use less aircon, we produce less CO2 as well, and we consume less power. Another thing can be, for example, very simple thing that I always do in a house, in my office, I turn off lights when nobody's using a certain space. This also can contribute to reduce consumption of power. Same thing can be said for water. For example, there are very simple tips. Now, when we brush our teeth, we have to turn off the water and open it just when we brush. We need to water the brush. So all these small things, if you can multiply for millions or millions of people, you can imagine the great impact that these small tips can have in helping to reduce the environmental impact that everyone has. I could go ahead and tell other many things, but I mean, these are very simple things that anyone can really do.
Architecture, green architecture concept, you're pushing for more natural ventilation, more airflow, lighter use of energy and water. Can this be applied in the crowded areas of Metro Manila in very small spaces, even in maybe very low income households?
That it actually can. I just saw the interview to the mayor of Quezon City. You would be impressed to know that in Quezon City, building regulation in the past, several years ago, I think in the 60s, 50s, there were already embedded basic rules to have buildings increasing natural ventilation and enhancing natural light. So, and we're talking about Quezon City. So green buildings can be developed anywhere, everywhere, and so it's not too much a problem where it's located. It's more about the design itself and how people use this structure. Obviously, we cannot expect that the air that can be experienced in, I don't know, in a place where in a no crowded space with not too much traffic, obviously it's going to be better quality than the air inside a very crowded city. But this doesn't mean that a green building cannot be developed, because we can have filter, we can find ways to mitigate this, let's say, negative situation.
They can be built into low-cost housing structures. Are there any local government units that have been consulting with you for this type of design, for low-cost housing?
To be frank, they didn't, but we are spontaneously doing that. We are now developing new products that we will launch in the market soon that are specifically dedicated for the socializing, economic, and mid-cost housing. Green buildings, again, as I go back to the first question, are green buildings expensive? It depends. Green buildings or greenhouses can be not expensive. It depends how the project is conceptualized. Obviously, if we think with the old set mindset, and then we want to make if when we design a building or a house, the approach is an old approach, then of course we have to add a lot of features that will make the building or the house costly. But if the approach at the onset is different, for example, in the housing, in the socializing market, the approach should be different from the very beginning in terms of finding the right location, in terms of using the right materials, in terms of increasing the ventilation, so in the design stage. Also using, for example, special films to be applied to the window. So there are many things that can make a house, even socialized economic house, very effective in terms of reducing the environmental impact. I know that even if there are some developers already in that space that are providing solar panels and other kind of features. I think this will become mainstream. This will grow, above all after this experience of the COVID. There is, in our experience, for example, in Italpinas, we have been positively impressed to see that sales of our unit didn't decrease, actually increased. So it means that people during this pandemic realize how important it is to live and to invest and have our family to live in an environment that is healthier. And green buildings or greenhouse healthier.
I was going to ask architect, how can architecture or how can design have helped to prevent COVID? Or for that matter, looking forward, how can design and architecture help to build safer homes, safer buildings, safer communities?
I think everyone learned a lot from what happened and what is still ongoing. As architects, we learn the lesson, and we understand that we have to consider when we design our structure that a situation like this one can happen again. So how can we mitigate the negative effect that this lockdown and this pandemic brought? Obviously, we need to think about, I don't like to call it social distance. I prefer to call it personal distance, because it's not social. Actually, sociality shouldn't be affected. On top of that, we need to consider again increasing as much as possible the natural ventilation of the units, because natural air and natural light can help to reduce the spread of the virus. Again, there are studies saying that the sun can kill the virus in a few seconds, I think. And so having access to natural light can help. Also, connectivity is also very important, because again, assuming there will be another lockdown, we all know that we need to be connected. So, for example, in the Philippines, I have to say that no one talks about how good the network system work in the Philippines, because can you imagine how many people during the lockdown were using the network, and the network was stable. I didn't hear anybody say, "Oh, this worked very well." But in general, people always complain. The same in Italy. But I would like to see people also appreciate how good was to live that period with a good connection. So these are some of the things we learn. Try to manage personal distance, increase ventilation, natural light, and connection. And also, sorry, last one, proximity to malls and grocery, because as we all experienced, it was not easy to do grocery and to access basic needs.
Yeah, but architect, I was actually going to ask about that, because as you said, you mentioned our conversation with Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City. You're an architect. We understand that. Of course, architects, as they do, also think as urban developers and as urban planners. We know you have that side in you as well. As more local governments and as more governments pour their plans and their resources into building new infrastructure, improving infrastructure, whether it's stopgap or for the long term, what would you say is the opportunity for them to redesign our cities right now? What would you suggest that cities look at in terms of our roads, our streets, the mobility of people, and so on?
I think one very important aspect is to decongest the mega cities. So let's talk about Metro Manila. So I heard that now there is a plan called Balik Provincia, for example. But even apart from this plan of trying to develop other cities in other locations, not Metro Manila, I think it would help already a lot. So from my point of view, infrastructure are very much needed in emerging cities in the Philippines, so that Philippines can become sooner rather than later a multipolar countries with several cities that have importance, so that in such a way that if something happens, for example, in Metro Manila, other cities can contribute to the growth of the country. Because just today I heard an interview where I heard that around 60% of the GDP of the Philippines is produced in Calabarzon area and Metro Manila. So you can imagine if that area would stop for several months, what happened to the country? So I think this is, from my personal point of view, a target, a goal that the Philippines should always take in mind. Try to develop emerging location in the Philippines. I mean, it's an archipelago. There are more than 7,000 islands, and there are many cities that need more infrastructure. Having said that, I think it's very important, again, to reduce traffic, because it looks like from recent study that smog pollution also help the virus to spread faster. This comes from Italy, where we have in a place in Lombardia, close to Milan, we had very, very many cases, and it looks like the smog and the pollution help the virus to spread. So if we can reduce, of course, traffic, and if we can increase connectivity, speed of the internet connectivity, and things like that. But again, to me, the most important thing would be the multipolar concept of developing the Philippines, and I think this government is going there. I think that's what I'm reading.
Well, we've been talking about decongesting Metro Manila and even Calabarzon for a long time, relocating all these businesses. But for the short term, what can be doable for the short term? Uh, you can see a lot of things being tried during this pandemic. How can we take advantage of the quarantines? Because they're experimenting with transportation, for example. Where else can we go to try and push for greener design, greener lifestyle during the pandemic? How can we take advantage of this?
I mean, I think that the lesson of the pandemic taught everyone to many things. I mean, we are still elaborating. I think it will be even in the future. For example, in the case of Luzon, there are going south and going north. I think it's going to be the trend of real estate and development in the near future. So again, decongesting Metro Manila towards, I don't know, going to Batangas and going to Clark and Subic, where also there is land, and there are already connection because there are highways going south and going north. I know also they are now connecting South Luzon to North Luzon Expressway, so to access the north is going to be easier. So I frankly think that there was already, before the pandemic, a process of decongesting Metro Manila, going south and going north, and also investing in infrastructure in the provinces. In also other locations apart from Luzon. I'm talking about Visayas and Mindanao. I think that this process will accelerate. So again, where you ask me where can we go, I mean, I think outside the mega city, because congestion, many people in a small place, it's very easy to understand, will not be good for virus protection, because the contamination will be faster. But again, to answer your question, I would say going south and going north. For example, I can talk about our company. We decided to go and to develop in Santo Tomas, in Batangas, which is only 45 minutes from here, and it's all highway. And we have a very good market response. So people is ready. It's ready to go outside Metro Manila if they can access Metro Manila easier. Just to make an example, easier for myself that I live in Makati to drive to Santo Tomas, which I will spend 45 minutes, than going to Quezon City. That it will require maybe 2 hours. So what I'm saying is, we need to switch the way we think. Time of movement is not anymore related to distance, but to the way we can get in a certain place. Again, Santo Tomas is farther than Quezon City, but I can reach Tomas faster than Quezon City.
Yeah.
So
Architect, I want to take on your concept for this multipolar approach. We've had many guests here, urban development experts, and so on. And I know that there is that debate between building vertically in the city that is already an engine for jobs and development versus sprawl, which am I taking that the wrong way? That multipolar principle or approach that you're espousing is in essence encouraging sprawl. Because we've spoken with some urban development experts that are also saying, no, horizontal is not the way to go. The way to go is to build vertically and to make the most of the fact that people are already in the cities precisely because the jobs are in the cities.
But we talk about cities now. We are talking about Metro Manila that as of today, I think has maybe 14 million people. This is already a mega city, a megalopoly. Okay, it's a huge number of people. But we have other cities like, for example, Cagayan de Oro was maybe 1,500,000 people living there. It's already a big city. Maybe if we compare it to Manila, it's more. But if we compare it, for example, with any cities in Europe or in England, in my country, a 1 million people city is already a big city. So apart from that, of course, in the past, there was a very aggressive migration in the Philippines. I'm talking from provinces to Metro Manila, because in the provinces there were no opportunities. It was very costly to fly. It was not like today, maybe 4 years ago. It was very expensive. On top of that, there was no internet connection. So it means that when you were in the province, you were really in the province, in a remote area where maybe even news arrived, I don't know how many days after Metro Manila. Usually it's not anymore like that. So now you can live in Cagayan de Oro like you live in Metro Manila. If you have internet, you have access to the same information. If you want to go to Manila or any other city, you can fly very easily and very cheap. And there are growing opportunities. And you have also to consider that, for example, many OFWs that are not from Metro Manila, but from the Visayas or from Mindanao, they are investing in the Philippines, and they would love to invest from the city where they are from. In fact, this is also something that is happening, and I have to be proud that Italpinas, they say, was ahead of the curve. That if we develop in an emerging cities, like, again, I can say Cagayan because we are there, but we can mention many others, you will see that OFWs will invest there and will eventually go there and bringing investment, bringing money, bringing opportunities to work. Also, the BPOs started to relocate their office outside Metro Manila. They started in surrounding areas in Metro Manila, then they started going to the Visayas and in Mindanao. So what I'm saying is, development goes where infrastructure are. If the infrastructure will move towards in emerging cities in the Philippines, we can be sure that there will be more jobs, there will be more people moving from the mega city to the province.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
Architect, apart from the pandemic, we are entering monsoon season. This is you've been here for a decade, you know that this is a land of natural calamities, earthquakes, floods, mudslides. How can you apply green architecture concepts to disaster resilience?
Okay. Actually, yes, Philippines is prone to many calamities, but it's also very capable to respond to them because of the history, so it is nothing new. A typhoon is not something new for the Philippines. An earthquake is not new for the Philippines, and floods as well. So in terms of green architecture, what I think is very important is, for a moment, let's forget about green architecture. Let's think about building smart, thinking before we build something. So I wouldn't suggest anyone to build a building or a house in a place that a proof history of floods, because the chances that the flood will repeat are higher, correct? Because there is already records of that. In terms of typhoon, there are studies that can be done during the design stage, and we do that can simulate a very high speed wind speed and understand how buildings behave according to this strong wind. So in general, when there are typhoons, a building can stand quite well. I think in the Philippines the problem is the informal settlers that most of the time have problems in withstanding typhoons. In terms of earthquakes, same story. I mean, there is a long tradition in the Philippine construction industry that make building very well done. Actually, when people asked me just a few days ago, they asked me, "What do you think about the Philippine way of building buildings and houses in case of earthquake?" I have to say, and I am a developer, right? So I have experience. Philippines build very nice structure. I mean, it's already embedded in the culture of the Filipino to build very strong structure, reinforced concrete, able to stand major calamity in terms of earthquake. In fact, even it was like last April. I mean, it was 2019. There was a quite big earthquake in Metro Manila. I think it was 6.5 or 5.6, something big. I mean, there were some damages, but nothing major. If something like that would happen, sorry to say, in my country, the damages and the people that may could have been hurt, could have casualty would have been much bigger. So what I'm saying is, let's also see the positive side. Philippines knows how to build structure in a proper way, but of course, as you said, we have to be very careful, always thinking about typhoon, earthquake, and floods.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, that's all very interesting, and unfortunately, we've run out of time. Architect Romolo Nati, Executive Chairman and CEO
Thank you very much.
Italpinas. Thank you for joining the Chiefs.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir.
Good
Yes.
evening, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, and that's a wrap for tonight. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. That'll be all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News.